Hey everyone, it's Karen at Worldschooling Central and welcome back to Worldschooling Spotlight. In this episode, I'm excited to introduce you to Brandon and Jennifer Pearce, who along with their 3 children have been worldschooling for many years. They're veterans of the worldschooling lifestyle, co-creators of the very successful Family Adventure Summit, and have so much to share. So watch this to find out more. Meet the Pearce family, who began their adventures in 2009 as a family of 4, before welcoming their youngest daughter while living in Costa Rica. They've been nomadic for nearly 11 years now, visiting and living in over 45 countries around the globe. They've set up longer-term home bases in Bali, Indonesia, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and Victoria, Canada, and are currently enjoying some time in Greenville, South Carolina. Inspired to help other families, in 2017 they started the Family Adventure Summit, the most popular worldschooling summit in the world, where the community comes together in person for support, encouragement, and a whole lot of fun. With lots of tips, tricks, and in-depth information to share, this interview is a must-watch from start to finish. We'll talk about the ins and outs of how their children learn, how they fund their adventures, and how they've legally paid almost zero tax while travelling full-time. Let's meet Brandon and Jennifer Pearce.
We're the Pearce family, and we've been traveling as a family for, 11 years now.
Yeah.
When did you guys start worldschooling?
Well, we moved from Utah, where we were kind of raised, and then started out in Panama as just kind of a experimental, travel experience. And we really loved it. And
our kids were 5 and 3 at the time.
Yes, we only had two girls at the time.
Why did you start worldschooling?
We just got back home to Utah, and we were trying to kind of replicate the energy of how it felt to be traveling, and the way we felt bonded and connected, and didn't have so many things pulling us in so many different directions, but we couldn't really figure out how to do it at the time. And we were really craving more adventure and more travel. So about a year later, we actually sold our house and most of our belongings. And
actually, we sold it just a few months later, but it took us a year to complete the whole process and get everything ready to set out on a longer term.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we bought a new car and sold it, and kind of dumb decision as you're like, okay, now what will help us feel fulfilled,
What
right?
do we want to do? What do we want?
What do we want? So when we did that, when we sold our house, we moved to Costa Rica, where our 3rd daughter was born. And then we've just been traveling ever since, trying to find home, I guess you could say, a place that felt like home. And we realized that there's no perfect place, but we really enjoy the variety and the contrast of the different places and what they have to offer.
And where have your adventures taken you?
So we started in Costa Rica, and then from there we kind of, on visa runs, we would visit some surrounding countries, and then we set out for Malaysia when our youngest daughter, Asia, was 5 months old. We stayed for a few months, 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that might be a longer term home base, but you never understand how the energy is going to work with you in a place until you get there and experience it for yourself. And we liked it while we were there, but we were ready to move on. And so we continued exploring like Singapore and Bali, and we loved Bali. And so that became our new home base. And there's some places we've discovered we love to have a home base in, other places we only like to visit repeatedly, in some places once is enough, so and then we were craving more of the Western world, so we moved over to Victoria, Canada, and then to Mexico, and now we're back here in the States. So
what was life like before you started worldschooling?
Our life was like a lot of people in the States, just kind of your standard American life. You go to a job and, actually I was working from home for a couple of years before we started travel. I'd quit my job to build a business. But before that, I was working full-time at a programming job. And we were just busy with life, with family, with
Very
little
busy.
kid birthday parties, and all the little things that go along with that. And it was busy.
But we've been busy the whole time, whether we're, traveling or not.
That's true.
Like, we keep ourselves busy,
But I feel like over the years, it's become more intentional, the things we're busy with. It's not just whatever is thrown at us that we feel like we have to do, but it's things that we've intentionally chosen, projects that we're passionate about, or places that we're excited to learn about, or different things like that.
Yeah.
But I would say back before we started traveling, it was just a normal life. We felt fine. We felt fairly content, but the one thing that I continued to feel was a little bit of a sense of stagnation. Like, is this all there is? Like, this is the same thing every day over and over and over again. And I felt like I really wanted a way to expand my mind and give our kids an opportunity to see the world and themselves through a different perspective.
So before you started Worldschooling, what questions and fears did you have?
For me, the biggest thing was I worried that we might be crazy because it was such a totally different thing. Nobody did that, and still most people don't do that.
There's a much bigger support community now. Back when we started, there was no one else. No one else was really doing it.
But
a handful
we
of families.
were so excited. Like, it was just curiosity, just pure curiosity. What would this be like? And we were so excited to just experience what was coming,
Once you made the decision to Worldschool, how did you prepare to get started?
For me, I think logistically, I had a few concerns. I didn't know what to do about the mail. I didn't know how we would handle, what to do with all our stuff, how we were going to get rid of it, what we were going to store, what we were going to put away. Just so many decisions to make, little decisions and big decisions, that it was a little bit overwhelming. But I'm pretty good at organizing, and I filled out my spreadsheet hands and figured out solutions, and we made it through. But I remember that being a kind of a little bit of a challenging time.
Yeah, thank goodness for Brandon, because I had this idea and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome, but I never would have done it because of all the logistical overwhelm. Like, that's kind of something he's really good at.
And how did friends and family react?
Our family was like, I think they felt a little bit abandoned and not like connected to enough in this whole process of us deciding to do this. And then we just left, and yeah.
What were your initial plans for educating the kids?
So we toyed with the idea of homeschooling, but we hadn't really given it serious consideration until we went to Panama, actually, and met another family who had homeschooled. And we realized that it's probably something we could do. And so we gave it a shot when we moved to Costa Rica and pulled out the books and studied together, and it was kind of a disaster.
Well, even before we went to Costa Rica, we started.
Okay.
And so what we started doing is we just took Emily, our oldest daughter, to the library and just let her pick out all the books that she was interested in, like at her reading level, and she learned how to read and she got that practice, and we started, the handwriting practice and, like letters and numbers and all that.
And how did those plans change as you traveled?
I remember back to those early days in Costa Rica, and we were so on fire with excitement and exploring and just so curious about everything. And so learning just naturally happened, and one thing led to another. And our children developed passions and interests, and they studied because they were excited about what they wanted to learn. And those passions and interests have evolved over time and changed. And it's just been a really fun process to see how that's gone. And each of our girls is so different,
Yeah, now they're 16, 14, and 8 years old. And so it's a very different stage from back when they were 5 and 3 and newborn. And it is interesting to see how it's evolved. I mean, I think what you said is right. They've just continued to pursue their passions and their interests, and that's kind of how we've dealt with it. I mean, we've had a few opportunities where they have attended schools like for a month or two here and there. For the most part, they didn't really enjoy them that much, and so they're happy to be more self-directed in their education. Our oldest has an online video editing business, which she's running for a couple of years and doing really well with. She has lots of interests and passions. Our middle daughter's really into 3D modeling and animation, and she plays the harp now. She got that degree. She wanted a harp, so we got her a harp. So, I mean, really, it's just, for us, it's been a matter of letting them lead. And if they have an interest or if they need a teacher or a class or a tool, we do what we can to provide that for them and just watch them thrive and just be here to support.
Tell us about deschooling for your family.
When we got to Costa Rica, we were just kind of trying to do like school at home, and we totally butted heads. Like, it just did not go well. And so we just kind of stopped everything, you know, for a while. We're all just going to take a break from it, you know, kind of that unschooling type of, I guess, deschooling is what you would call it. And we did that, and then just waited for things to kind of, just to see what happened. And it was just kind of opening up space, you know, and kind of giving ourselves just that opportunity to tune in to what it is that we want to be focusing on and how. And
most kids don't, I mean, our kids didn't really go to school. They had a couple years of preschool, I guess.
yeah.
So it's not deschooling in the sense that they went to 10 years of elementary school and now they've got to forget what they learned or whatever. I guess it's not, you don't go to 10 years of elementary school.
It was mostly deschooling for us, I think. And we didn't want to get in their way, you know, we didn't want to crush their love of learning, you know, and I just felt like it was a battle and it was not fun. And so I didn't want it to be like that. So for us, it was kind of a process of figuring out the right energy to be approaching this whole educational process with, you know.
And can you share some examples of how your kids learn?
In different places we've been, we've tried to look at what's available, and the teachers and the classes. And so that's allowed them to be exposed to different teachers and different topics that they wouldn't otherwise get to.
Just a few examples. When we were in San Miguel de Allende, our middle daughter was taking an aerial silks class and just became very passionate about that. Emily was doing painting.
Yeah, oil painting with a teacher she absolutely loved. She was so amazing.
And then our youngest was taking ballet lessons from a teacher there in San Miguel. And when we were about to leave, we'd been there for over a year, the teacher just loved working with our youngest because she was so passionate about ballet. She just loved it. And so we suggested the idea of maybe teaching her online. And this wonderful Mexican teacher said, I'm not sure how to do that, but I'd like to figure it out and let's do it. And so we started doing it, and they're still like a year and a half later, she still takes twice a week online ballet lessons with this teacher. So they were so happy to connect again last week when we went down there. And then the teachers also opened it up and is now taking more online ballet students. So it's been kind of fun to see that.
And now that we're here in Greenville, our daughter Asia is also taking in-person ballet classes from the Ballet Academy here, and still her online private lessons with her teacher in Mexico, which it was great to be in person again with her teacher, you know, last week when we were in Mexico, because there's even more you can do with an in-person private lesson with the adjustments and all of that. But yeah, like having the opportunity for her to have that extra help and support is really invaluable. Yeah.
So what does a normal world schooling day look like for the Pearce family?
Normal day, gosh.
It's
Everybody's
normal.
just kind of
No.
everybody's just kind of doing their interests, and you know, like we're all engaged in what we're passionate about, you know. And I don't even know what it's like to feel bored anymore, you know. And I think our girls mostly aren't bored, except for our youngest sometimes gets bored.
Especially if she hasn't had a friend to play with for a while. Yeah.
She makes use of Skype to keep in contact with her friends. She's our most sociable, you know, family member. But yeah, like it's just interesting that process too, because trying to, you know, work with each other's emotions and, you know, get along in those ways and try and help and support each other. And just being able to be together all the time to understand what each other is going through and feel free to communicate about our thoughts and feelings and emotions and learn how to do that better. I mean, that's been a huge part of our process.
So regarding structure of the day, I'll just say here right now, it's the two older daughters, the teenagers tend to sleep in till almost noon some days. It just depends. Emily will do some of her work on her business, or she'll do things like that. I'll be working, of course, most of the day. They have classes, so we'll be driving them back and forth to classes regularly throughout the week. Almost every day they've got something going on.
And we aren't really close to many of their classes, so it's like a half hour there and a half hour back.
It's a lot of driving right now.
Yeah.
Which is totally opposite of San Miguel, when we could just walk everywhere in 5 minutes.
Or take a quick Uber ride.
But and then in the evenings, we have dinner together, of course, and then we have family time the last few hours of the night, where we'll read together. Right now we're reading histories from like my grandpa and great grandma and stuff like that they wrote stories and memories about their lives. We're just kind of learning about that and what it was like to live 100 years ago. Really interesting. But we just finished a novel that was really good. And then sometimes we'll watch a show, or we'll just play a game, or we'll talk and have a treat or something like that. So that's kind of generally what we do. And then once or twice a week we'll go somewhere, do something fun, and we'll have weekly dates with each of our daughters as well. And then Jen and I also go on a date together once a week.
And how have your family relationships changed because of Worldschooling?
I think the fact that we are together all the time, not necessarily in the same room, but in the same vicinity, the same house or whatever, we have the same experiences together when we're out. So just seeing them from the smallest age up to where they are now, through everything, all of the challenges, all of the drama, all of the pains, all of the excitements, everything. We're not sending them off 8 hours a day. We're with them. And so, wow, I mean, how could we not just become closer and closer through that, and learn to love and appreciate each other more and more through that? So that's all I have to say. You have a lot.
Yeah, that's a big question, and it's a difficult one. Like that's one of the main things we've been working on this whole time. That's one of the things that made us excited to go traveling, is to have that time together and to bond. But like you said, when you have all that time together, it's like, it's almost like so much pressure. It's like, what if we can't get along? Like, how we have all this time together, we should be really close. How come we're fighting so often? What can we do about this? Like, we have all these opportunities, but how do we really bond and connect? And that's been a challenge for us. And one of the things that's really, it's a lot of little things, that it's just prioritizing a lot of little things. And one of the things that's helped us the most is just really looking at the energy of how we're each feeling and how the energy together feels. And if something's feeling off, really communicating about it, and talking through it and looking at emotions, not being afraid of the emotions. And also just learning how to have connecting conversations, and asking each other questions and sharing from the heart and becoming good listeners and listening from the heart, and just taking everybody's desires into account, and trying to make sure we take turns in meeting those desires that every family member has and wants, and trying to respect each other in those ways. And yeah, so it's a process, and just acknowledging, like if we feel like, we need to apologize for something, or we need to be heard in something, like learning those skills of self-compassion and compassion for each other, and the patience and in the ways that we're expressing things. And so it's all of that stuff.
What would you say are some of the benefits of Worldschooling?
There's so many beautiful places in the world, so many amazing people with different varieties of perspectives, incredible food, beautiful natural surroundings, all that's wonderful. But the thing that I love most about travel is what it teaches me about myself, and just being in a different place. It just kind of shakes me out of my mindset, of my routine, and helps me see the world in a different place and from a different perspective, and helps me see myself in a different way as well. And it just kind of expands, hopefully, the ways that I can move about through life.
Yeah, expands our perspective. And that's really a huge part of the Worldschooling journey for us, is just like, there's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so just exploring the world, you learn so much about what you never even knew existed, and it just opens you up to learning in so many unexpected ways that really expand you, and your family.
And what challenges have you faced along the way?
One thing that we didn't expect that I think has posed a little bit of a challenge was early on when our girls were very young. They were very cute and blonde and similarly dressed. And we'd go to places like Peru or Vietnam or different places like that where they would get a lot of attention. And sometimes people would reach out and touch them, or they'd stop them and ask to take their picture. And then the next 5 seconds later, another person wanted to take their picture, and it just over and over and over. We didn't have such a, I guess the same understanding or even a level of respect or boundaries for what our kids wanted. And if someone wanted a picture, like let's be nice and let's let them have their picture, rather than I can see our kids don't want this picture. No, thank you. They're not in the mood right now. So we could have done a better job at respecting our kids' boundaries, and that I think some of that caused just
our older daughter,
especially some anxiety issues and things around some of that. So
yeah. And through that, like they also learned, like our oldest daughter also learned how to cope with that as well. One of the breakthroughs for her was when we were in Thailand at the Grand Palace, and there were a lot of Chinese tourists there, and they all wanted to take her picture, and she had her own camera with her at the time, and so she was about ready to break into tears from all the attention, but instead she put her camera up to her face and just like wouldn't move it. You know, it's like she was taking pictures of them, and so they kind of got that idea of, and then everybody was laughing, so it was a good way to kind of help like educate other people about what your experience is, and yeah, just kind of protecting yourself energetically.
How do you guys afford to Worldschool?
I can share our story on that. I mean, we've also put out a survey as part of the Family Adventure Summit team, and it's interesting to see the percentages of the people who do travel. The majority actually just work at a job and do it remotely, and yet still manage to travel that way. Other people have businesses or they have investments. For us, I started an online business back in 2004, which it's a software that helps music teachers keep track of billing and scheduling. And it took me several years to get it to the point where it would actually fund our family's living expenses. And I was able to quit my job. And it just kept growing and growing from there, and kept growing it off after we started traveling as well, and limited my hours as much as I could to enjoy time with the family. That business is pretty much running itself now. For the past several years, it has been. I've hired a CEO to run it. So that's taking care of itself. It's not doing as well as it was at its peak because I have not been giving as much attention to it, probably. But I recently bought another business, software as a service business, and am just finding I'm enjoying putting my energy back into that. I haven't really been working, in that industry for the past 5 or 6 years. I've been doing some real estate investing. We have a couple Airbnbs and things like that, which now we have fewer because we just sold one. But I'm finding it's really fun to get back into this software as a service model, because it's something I have experience in. It reminds me of the first business I made like 10 years ago. And I know what to do. I can see all the little opportunities, and I'm just kind of exercising those muscles again, which is a new challenge and a fun experience for me. So I hope that this one will grow well over the next year or two. And then we'll see. We need a lot more money here in the States. It's like 2 or 3 times feels like as expensive to live here as it is anywhere else in the world for us. Because
traveling was cheaper.
Because of taxes and because of insurance and because of just so many things. Everything's more expensive here. So I'm working a little harder to live here, which is different, but it's okay for right now.
And how much does it cost you guys to Worldschool?
We're way better off traveling. First of all, as U.S. citizens, if you're outside of the States for more than 330 days a year, you qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, which is a $100,000 tax deduction for each parent. So right there, we basically didn't pay any taxes the past 10 years. There were a couple of years we had a little bit, but it's that's huge right there. Insurance, we didn't have insurance for most of the time, and when we did, it was just a couple $100s a month.
Health insurance.
Health insurance, right.
Or car insurance.
Or we didn't even have a car. We didn't own a car, so there's that, no car expenses.
And now we have a teenager that's learning to drive, and so that totally goes through the roof.
Oh, the insurance. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Car
Almost
insurance
2
is crazy.
teenagers learning to drive.
Yeah, it will be next year. So it's, yeah. Just think of all these expenses that we have here.
And like the cost of living in the places we chose as home bases as we were traveling was a lot lower.
Like Bali, Mexico, okay, examples. We could go and rent a place long-term. We rented a house in Bali for it was like $5,000 a year. It was a 3-bedroom house with a pool, beautiful jungle view. It was unfurnished, but we ended up, rather than just living there, we decided to invest some money into that, and we did a whole remodel and made it amazing. And now it's renting out as a luxury villa for $300 a night. So that was a good investment. It's still, I think we'll have probably made our money back in the next couple of years. And then we extended our lease to be long-term. Anyway, so but you can find very affordable places. If we're just going for short-term, we'll rent an Airbnb or something like that. And, for a 3 or 4 bedroom place, often we will pay a little more than maybe even we would here, $3,000 a month or something like that.
Occasionally
more, if we really want a nice experience. But you can find cheaper places, of course. With a family of 5, I found when we had 4 kids in our family, everything was so much cheaper. And then when you get that 3rd kid, having to get an extra seat in the car, an extra place at the restaurant table, an extra room in the house, it added a bit, especially when they got big enough to require that. But still, it's fine. Food, you go out to eat out at restaurants and it's $2, $3, $4 a plate for beautiful, amazing, gorgeous, gourmet, organic, vegan, whatever you want food from anywhere in the world. Whereas here it's like $10, $15, $20 a plate.
And maybe the food isn't even as good, right? Some places,
So there's that. But when you just think about the cost savings, mostly biggest savings would be taxes, insurance, transportation. Airplanes, of course, cost money when we need to fly somewhere, but we don't own a car, so there's no gas, there's no insurance, no maintenance. All that stuff was gone, and now we have it again, including a car payment even. So because
we're not paying for gas because we have an electric car.
Electric.
So we're paying for electricity.
So what's next in your adventures?
First of all, it feels really good to be here. It's just the right time for us to settle down and relax and unwind and I guess integrate in a deeper way than we've been able to as we've been traveling. So that part feels really good. But, we were here for 3 months before we went back to Mexico to sell our home and pack up our stuff to move. And gosh, I noticed that I kind of was almost feeling surprisingly insular and hermetic, in comparison to, what San Miguel energy shook up in me again, like that aliveness and that energized feeling. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to make sure I keep that balance, and so, yeah. I
think for us, it's hard. I think we still need to continue to take trips, even if they're just short, to shake that up, because it's so easy to lose sight and to forget what other places can bring you, what else is just sitting inside there that's dormant or stagnant, or
we have to be more proactive.
And I know there are other ways to do it besides going to a new place, but
even just little things and making ourselves really take those little steps, whether it's just doing something once a week together that's different as a family, or just shaking up the routine a little bit.
Where can we find you online?
We have our personal blog at pearceonearth.com, PEARCE on Earth. There's 45 countries of resources on that blog if you go there. We've been to a lot of places. You can read about our experiences, watch our videos. One thing we are doing that we're really grateful to be a part of because of the way that it serves the community is the Family Adventure Summit. And if you go to familyadventuresummit.com, you can see more about it, but it's an annual event for world schoolers or for families interested in living life on their own terms. We had our first one in Penticton, British Columbia, Canada in 2017. Then we went to Mexico the next year, Bali the next year, and now we're back in Penticton this 2020, September 5th through the 9th. It's a family conference, so it's not like you're going to go and you're just going to sit and listen all day long to different talks or whatever. There are talks to listen to, and there's some amazing talks. I think you're going to speak, aren't you, Karen? Yeah? Awesome. So there's a lot of things like that for the adults especially, as well as hangout spots and things like that, and different activities. But for the kids, oh my gosh, that's the coolest part of this conference, I think, is the kids program, because there are so many different activities that the kids have to choose from. We've done, like last year in Bali, we had a musical theater program. So the kids who wanted to put on a whole performance celebrating Balinese culture and different things, and they performed it at the end for the parents. It was awesome. There's a sports program, a technology program, an arts program, a music program, whatever. So much there, and kids from all over the world, all different ages, including a great teen program as well. So much fun. So much fun.
And the other thing about our journey, as we've talked about, it's just been such a journey of personal development. And I personally have really been enjoying doing high performance coaching as well. So I am taking clients for anybody who's looking for a coach in that kind of a niche. And of course, with the traveling experience we've had, if anybody needs, kind of guidance and help in that area as well, it's definitely something that I have expertise in. So yeah.
She's a really good coach.
Yeah.
Let me also just put in a plug for our daughter, Emily, her video editing business, crystalcutstudios.com. If you need any video editing work done, a lot of families travel and they take amazing videos and then they just sit on a hard drive and they don't know what to do with them. Send them to my daughter. She'll put together amazing, high quality videos.
Finally, what would you say to someone who's considering world schooling?
I would say that there's been no greater education. There's been no greater method for personal growth than getting out there and experiencing the variety in the world, and then experiencing that with your kids, especially with my kids, to see how they handle it all, and what questions they have, and just it gives me a chance to see through different eyes. That's again what I appreciate the most. I just say go for it. Yeah, it's not as hard as you think.
To find out more about the Pearce family, visit their websites using the links below this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified when we upload new videos, and to find out more about Worldschooling, visit www.worldschoolingcentral.com.